All right, welcome back. Episode number 6. I felt like I wasn't going to do one today and then just decided I might as well throw something up. I am running out of topics. And I can't keep coming up with these amazing topics that are so appealing to everybody. So send me some messages, give me some ideas. I'll talk about anything because in the end, what do I know? I'm calling this episode Favorite Failures. So I have 3 or 4 of my favorite failures in my life, and really this is just a little subtle dig at all those people who hated The Last Jedi, because the theme of that movie was really about failure. It was about everybody's failure, all the main characters' failures. So I mean, I've tried to teach my kids this a lot. You don't really learn anything from success, you learn tons from failure. So the more you fail as a young growing adult, the more often you should be successful as you get older. So I have 5 of my favorite failures. I think I've got 5 here. We'll see how many we have time for and how long I blab on about them. But I'm going to go through each of those. I'm going to explain why they're my favorite failures. And in the end, they're really not favorite failures. In the moment, they were sometimes very devastating. And I'm still suffering some negative effects from some of them, but I definitely learned a lot and made me a better person. So, number 1, when I went through high school, I did a ton of work to become a lifeguard. Anybody who's been a lifeguard knows how much work it is. It's a fantastic job. It's like 99% sheer boredom and 1% terror when something bad actually does happen. So you have to go through a ton of training to get to this spot. So you had to do all your regular swimming levels, but then you had to do bronze cross, bronze medallion, and then you had to do your NLS, National Lifeguard Service, and you had to have your first aid up to date like yearly. So there's a ton of work for a relatively young kid to go through to get all this stuff. And I was in my bronze cross, which was the one right before you take your National Lifeguard certification, and you have to take the course. I think it's bunch of weekends you spend doing stuff, and I had to drive because there was no indoor pool where I grew up, so I had to drive about an hour and a half to get to the pool. So I would go and spend the weekend and take all these courses, and I passed bronze medallion no problem. Then I got to bronze cross, and you take the course and then you get examined by someone who's not your instructor. And I was examined through it. I went through the test to pass bronze cross, and after it was all said and done, we all went into a room, and the examiner came in and started talking about where everybody made mistakes. And he started out and he said, "So Kevin, when you did your spinal," and what that means is if somebody jumps into a pool and goes head first and breaks their neck and they pass out, there's a specific way you have to get them turned face up in the water so that they can breathe. But if they're unconscious and they've broken their spine, you have to immobilize them. So there's a specific hold you have to use with your hand on their jaw, and your elbow has to go straight down the breastbone. When I was in the middle of my exam doing my spinal, I rotated underwater, because you hold them like that, and you rotate underwater to get their face pointed up. And as I was coming up, I realized, oh, my elbow is not straight down the breastbone, it's kind of off to the side, so I just moved my elbow a little bit. He said everything else in your examination was absolutely perfect, but you moved your elbow and your spinal, which is an automatic fail. And all this work I'd put in, and I'm not a real positive person to start with, so it just came crashing down. I was so upset. I didn't think I'd ever be able to be a lifeguard, even though the guy said everything else was flawless. You did a great job. Just you can't move your elbow. Once you set your elbow, it has to stay set, and if you move it, you could kill the person. So you fail. Of course, I was crushed, phoned my parents, crying. I quit. I'm never doing this again. I'm not going to be a lifeguard. I'm done. And my parents had already pumped a bunch of money into me becoming a lifeguard, so they probably wanted to see a little bit of a return, even if it was just for me. So, of course, they talked me into it. I ended up going and taking the test again, and I passed with no weeks at all, no mistakes. And it just kind of started me out learning that sometimes when you fail at stuff, it just teaches you. And I mean, if I ever did a spinal now, when I was a lifeguard, or now, there's no way I would ever move my elbow. It was ingrained inside me that you absolutely do not move your elbow. So at the time, terrible, super valuable in teaching me the proper technique in something. After grade 12 in high school, I went on to play football. I was a decent football player in high school, and I actually played in 3 all-star games. Because I played 6-man football, we were allowed to try out for the Senior Bowl. I don't know if 6-man players are still allowed to, but I made the Senior Bowl, which is North and South Saskatchewan against each other. Then I played in the Can-Am Bowl, which was played in Saskatchewan. American teams against Canadian teams. It was all 6-man. And then I got asked to go to Abilene, Texas, and play in an all-star game there, which was also 6-man, but it was Canada and the United States against Texas. And all 3 of those all-star games, I lost. My team lost in all 3 of them. So it was very much you made those all-star teams, but maybe you're not actually that good because your team sucked. There wasn't a lot of people to play on. So it was kind of defeating that we lost all those games. But it didn't make me quit. It just made me hungry to keep trying and to get that success I was looking for. And I ended up playing junior football with the Rams. So it was definitely something that I learned from. So, again, pretty brutal failures at the time, but I learned from them and got better. So this one's a relatively funny one, but when I was in university, I met my wife. I actually met her because I toured first-year university students around the university. They'd come for a day, and I'd tour them around, and I used to take a group of them around. And that's where I met my wife. I toured her around the university for a day, and there's several funny stories in between this, but we kind of started dating, and I really liked her. She was a really good person. She was beautiful and smart and funny and all those things. And I tend to be a bit, I have an addictive personality. So as soon as I find something I like, I don't want to ever be away from it. So I was a little bit too much for my wife, and I never gave her any room to breathe, and she ended up just saying to me, like, yeah, no, you're a loser. Get out of here. I don't want to hang out with you. And it was crushing, and I was upset, and I thought, like, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, yeah, you know what? Maybe you were a bit too much. So I changed my strategy. I waited a couple months, and then I think I just phoned her at Christmas time to wish her Merry Christmas, or maybe it was New Year's, to wish her a Happy New Year's. And she had just had her wisdom teeth out, so it was weird that this guy she'd kind of been dating was calling her. So, but she took the call. We chatted a little bit, and then I just slowly started to work my way back in. And sooner or later, she gave in to the good looks and charm, and here we are now. So it was pretty crushing when she walked away from us being in a relationship the first time, but it really made me stop and think, whoa, what are you doing wrong here? And I adjusted myself and, ended up making myself a better person. So my first job was definitely a failure for me. I got a job in a small town in Saskatchewan. I believed I wanted to work in a small town. It was a year, I'd say about the first half of the first year was okay, and then things just started to nosedive for specific reasons I don't necessarily want to get into, because I know some people will know where that job was, and I don't want to bash anybody specifically, but it was pretty terrible after that first half of year. And then my second year, it was awful. Yeah, if I wouldn't have been able to get a transfer out of where I was, I would have quit teaching. It was so bad. And I mean, it still impacts me today in the way I think about different things. So it really, really inspired me to get out of there. And like I said, the failure of being in that building for the first time, for the first 2 years of my career, really, really lit a fire under my ass to get a job and get out and get somewhere else. And that pushed me on and on and on until I ended up getting a job in Regina, which was life-changing for all of us. So huge failure, but also a pretty good success afterwards. At several points in my career as a teacher, I've taught elementary school. It's awful. Awful, awful, awful. I believe wholeheartedly that elementary teachers should be paid more. They have more work to do. Yeah, high school teachers have extra cur and their content is much more difficult, but for elementary teachers, Your job starts when you get out of your car in the parking lot. You park your car in the parking lot, you get out of your car, you're on. You're working. There's nowhere to escape and get away. The students are not independent enough for you to ever have a break. If you're having a bad day, it's irrelevant. You still have to be able to deliver. You still have to be on all the time. There's no break, no time to get away. You get back in your car, you're on until you pull that door closed in the parking lot. So I learned that. I mean, I'm high school trained, so I guess that would be part of it. I even got to experience a kindergarten classroom, which was just absolutely terrible. And the kindergarten teacher had even set stuff up for me. She had a little booklet for all the kids, and I was in there half an hour a week. And even with all the work done, just being in the room, I would try and bribe other teachers and say, if you work that half an hour for me, I'll cover your class during my prep and give up, I'll work an hour if you work 30 minutes for me. And my failure being an elementary school teacher really inspired me to find a niche in high school that I fit, and so that I can stay in high school and not have to go back to elementary. It was a very, very bad failure for me. And I guess the last one, in terms of favorite failures for me, this podcast, I think has been a pretty solid fail, and still going on with a fail. So I'm hoping a year from now I can quit my job because I'm making so much money as a YouTube personality. I don't know. I doubt it. But every single episode I do something wrong and somebody points it out, or I notice it myself, and I think I make it a little bit better each time. So hopefully I can get it all figured out to where it actually looks good. I doubt it. I'm stuck in my house. I don't have a lot of resources to make anything that much better. So that would probably be the last failure. And one little side note I'd like to add, it's a incredibly important thing, failure. Our youth sports today, and I'm probably going to have another whole podcast on the issues with youth sports, but our youth sports today, they are losing sight of this concept. The idea for youth sports is to fail. You fail and you learn, oh man, I should never do that. For example, checking from behind in hockey. Checking from behind in hockey, there is only one penalty for that. In amateur hockey, you get 5 minutes in a game. The reason they do that is because they want people to learn. If you check from behind, you get kicked out of the game, because checking someone from behind can end somebody's life, could end somebody's hockey career, can end their ability to walk. It's serious. You can't do it. You must be in control. We're losing sight of that because our officials won't call that penalty. Very few officials will call that penalty. And it doesn't mean you're an evil human being. It just means you made a mistake. You made a mistake that you absolutely can never make again. And what better way to teach that than saying, hey, sorry, you have a 5-minute misconduct, or you have a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. Plus you're going to have to sit out another game after that. That kid will never check someone from behind again, especially at the young levels. The younger that starts getting instituted, the more likely somebody is to learn from that failure. And last little tidbit about failure in youth sports. My daughter's hockey team was playing a team. They were winning 1-0 in the third period. It was pandemonium. Everybody was tired who was on the ice. They were trying to clear the puck. The team was pressuring. They were going to tie it up. And there was a scrum in front of the net. The puck was loose. Couldn't really see what happened, but the horn goes, the game ends, we think we've won the game, but the refs had called a penalty. And the penalty was one of the players on our team closed her hand over the puck in the crease. Now, I think this was Adam, and you don't spend a lot of time in Adam teaching kids, oh yeah, you can't cover your hand over the puck when you're in the crease. You have to knock it out. You can't cover it. If you cover it, that's a penalty shot. So, great job by the refs to see it and make the call. It's a pretty ballsy call to make right at the end of the game, and they made it. The other team got a penalty shot. They scored. They tied the game. So we went from tying a team from beating a team to tying them. And it was a tough loss. My daughter was upset about it. Lots of the girls were upset. But what a learning experience. I'll guarantee you right now that not one girl on that team that went through that failure will ever cover their puck in the crease again, because they know that rule now. And it's a rule that most likely has never been taught to them at that age. but those girls know that. So it's just a valid reason for why we have to encourage failure. Like, we have to find these times where these kids fail, and we have to let them know, like, that the purpose of failing is to learn. If you succeed and you win all the time, you don't learn anything. So that's my 5 failures. I probably have 200 more. I didn't bring up the Vanier Cup. I'm still looking for a positive on that one. But thank you very much for listening. This has been Quarantine 2020, Episode 6, Favorite Failures. I'll see you next time.